Halloween night had always been Michael and Emily Smith's favorite time of the year. They weren't the party type, just quiet, cozy people who preferred celebrating at home. Tonight, the air smelled of pumpkins and rain. Orange streetlights flickered through the fog, and the faint echoes of children's laughter drifted through the nearly empty neighborhood. Inside the Smith house, the mood was warm and calm. Candles glowed softly on the dining table, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. Emily sat across from Michael, the reflection of the firelight dancing in her eyes. She smiled as he poured her a glass of red wine, the deep red liquid catching the light. "Finally," she said, her voice a mix of relief and teasing. "Just us. No office calls, no neighbors, no noise." Michael raised his glass, a smile playing on his lips. To Halloween and to peace. They clinked their glasses, the delicate sound echoing in the quiet room. Outside, the world was silent again, almost too quiet, and then something flickered. Emily's gaze shifted, drawn toward the window that looked out onto the street. Across from them stood the old Miller house, a forgotten, derelict place that no one had dared to buy for decades. Its windows had always been dark, like hollow eyes staring into the void. But tonight, a dim orange glow was pulsing behind the dusty curtains. It was faint, but unmistakable, like a slow, rhythmic heartbeat made of fire. Michael chuckled, trying to brush it off. "Looks like someone's trying to spook the neighborhood. Pretty late to be setting up decorations." But Emily didn't smile. Her eyes were wide, fixed on the strange light. "The power's been cut off there for years, Mike," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Michael glanced again, his own smile fading. The light inside the Miller house blinked once, twice, then went out completely, plunging the house back into darkness. The silence that followed was thick, so heavy you could hear their own breathing, the frantic thumping of their hearts. Suddenly, the candle on their dining table flickered violently, in the exact same rhythm as the light from the house across the street. Once. Twice. Then it stood still again, its flame burning steady. Emily let out a nervous laugh. "Okay, that's a weird coincidence." But Michael noticed her hand was trembling as she reached for her wine glass, her knuckles white. Then came the sound. A soft, almost polite knock at their front door. Tap, tap, tap. They both froze, their eyes locking across the table. It wasn't a loud, aggressive knock, just a patient, waiting tap. Michael pushed his chair back and stood up, forcing a half smile. Probably just a late trick-or-treater, someone who got lost. He walked to the door, his footsteps seeming unnaturally loud in the silent house. He turned the handle and pulled the door open. The porch was empty. No giggling children, no parents waiting on the sidewalk, no footsteps retreating into the night. Just the cold, damp breath of the Halloween wind pushing at his shirt, carrying the smell of wet leaves and decay. He looked down, about to close the door, and that's when he saw it. Sitting perfectly centered on their doormat was a pumpkin. It was carved with a wide, unsettling grin and hollow, vacant eyes. A small candle flickered inside, casting a grotesque, dancing light. But they hadn't carved any pumpkins this year. They hadn't even bought one. Emily joined him at the door, her hand clutching her robe. Who put that there?" she asked, her voice trembling. Michael bent down, his fingers hovering over the pumpkin surface. It was still warm to the touch. He peered inside, and his blood ran cold. The candle's flame pulsed in that same haunting rhythm. 1, 2, pause, exactly like the light in the Miller house. He stepped back instinctively, a shiver running down his spine. "Maybe someone just dropped it off," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "A welcome to the neighborhood gift, maybe?" Emily frowned, shaking her head. "At exactly our door. And why now?" They both looked across the street again, as if pulled by an invisible string. The Miller house glowed once more, but this time it was brighter, a more confident, steady orange, and in the upstairs window, a faint shadow moved. A tall, slender figure, it was standing completely still, its silhouette stark against the glow, watching them. The distant sound of children trick-or-treating, which had been a comforting background noise, suddenly stopped, as if someone had hit a mute button on the world. Even the wind went still. The silence was absolute. Emily's whisper was a ghost of a sound. "Mike, someone's inside that house." He stared harder, his eyes straining in the dark. The shadow shifted again, just a slight turn of a head, then it seemed to melt back into the darkness of the room. The light remained. Michael forced a laugh, a harsh, dry sound. "Okay, this is getting weird. If it happens again, I'm calling the police." He turned to close the door, wanting to shut out the night and whatever was happening in it. But before he could, the candlelight from the pumpkin on the porch flared, suddenly bright enough to blind him for a second. And in that flash of light, he swore he heard a whisper, seeming to come from inside the pumpkin itself. A child's voice, soft and pleading. "Come home," Emily gasped, stumbling back from the doorway. "Did you hear that?" Michael nodded slowly, his heart hammering against his ribs. The pumpkin's flame died instantly, plunging the porch back into darkness. Silence. Again, he slammed the door shut, locking it, the click of the bolt echoing through the house. "It's just kids," he said, turning around, trying to convince himself as much as her. "Just a prank, a really elaborate prank." But he stopped mid-sentence. Emily wasn't looking at him. She was staring at something behind him, her face pale with terror. He followed her gaze to the dining table. The candles, the ones they had lit for their romantic dinner, were gone. They were no longer burning. Instead, every single one of them had been replaced by tiny, carved jack-o'-lanterns, their hollow smiles glowing with a faint, sickly orange light in the dark. And outside, through the window, the lights in the Miller house burned steady and bright, as if they were waiting for them to notice. As if the show was just beginning. The house felt colder now. The air had changed. It was thick, still, and charged with something that just didn't belong. I rubbed my hands together and tried to force a smile. "All right, that's enough spooky for one night. Let's watch a movie, yeah?" But Emily didn't answer. She was standing by the window, her gaze fixed on the old Miller house across the street. The lights were off again. Completely. No flicker, no glow, just that vast black window staring back at us like an open mouth. But Emily swore she could still see movement inside. "Michael," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Someone's still in there." I joined her by the glass, trying to follow her line of sight. "You're just imagining things." But as the words left my mouth, the streetlights outside began to flicker one by one. Pop, 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 until only the faint orange glow from our own porch remained. A sudden chill ran down my spine. The pumpkin we found earlier was gone. Just gone. All that was left was a dark, wet ring on the concrete where it had been sitting, as if it had melted right into the step. I blinked, confused. "Where the hell?" Emily grabbed my arm, her grip tight. "It's Halloween night. Let's just go upstairs, lock the doors, please." I nodded, trying to project a calm I didn't feel, but my eyes darted to the old wall clock. It had stopped. The hands were frozen at 11:13 p.m. We went upstairs together, the sound of our footsteps echoing way too loudly in the unnervingly empty house. Emily went straight into the bedroom while I lingered at the top of the stairs, looking down into the darkness below. And that's when I saw it. The faintest orange light glowing from the kitchen. It was like a candle, like a pumpkin. I started down the stairs slowly, each step groaning under my weight. The kitchen was empty, but the pumpkin was back, sitting right in the center of the table. Only this time, it was carved differently. Its grin was sharper, more malevolent, its eyes narrowed into cruel slits. And beneath it, etched into the wood of our kitchen table in what looked like dark ash, were the words, "Welcome home," Michael. I staggered back, my heart hammering against my ribs. What the hell? I turned, and my blood ran cold. In the reflection of the dark kitchen window, someone was standing right behind me. A tall, shadowy shape, its face hidden, completely motionless. I spun around, ready to fight, but there was nothing. Just empty air and the faint, unsettling smell of burnt wax. Without a second thought, I ran back upstairs, slamming the bedroom door behind me. Emily was sitting on the edge of the bed, pale and shaking. "Michael," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Someone called my name." I stared at her, my mind racing. "What?" Her eyes filled with tears. I heard it, a whisper right beside me. It said, "Emily, come outside." We stared at each other as the horrifying realization sank in. This wasn't a prank. This was something else. Just then, faint laughter echoed from outside, children's laughter. But it was after midnight. There were no trick-or-treaters left. I crept to the curtain and peeked outside. At first, I saw nothing but the dark, empty street. Then, movement. 4 small figures, like children, were standing perfectly still in the middle of the road. Each one held a glowing pumpkin. Their faces were hidden behind simple, blank paper masks. The one in the front slowly raised its hand and pointed directly at our house. Emily's whisper cut through the silence. "Michael, shut the lights." I reached for the switch, but before my fingers could even touch it, every single light in the house went out at once. Darkness swallowed us whole. Then we heard it, the sound of small footsteps on our porch, followed by that same polite knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. "Don't move," I whispered, my voice hoarse, but it was too late. From downstairs came the faint, unmistakable creak of the front door opening. Slowly, deliberately. We hadn't moved. We hadn't touched it. The sound of footsteps entered the house. Wet. Emily clutched my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Someone's in here." Then came the whispering. It started low, dozens of voices murmuring together, rising and falling like wind blowing through dead leaves. I frantically grabbed my phone. No signal. Of course. I switched on the flashlight, the beam shaking uncontrollably in my trembling hand. And then we both saw it. On the bedroom wall, directly across from us, letters were being written. By nothing. They were burning themselves into the paint, glowing like hot embers. "You lit the lights. Now they're awake." The whispering stopped. The sudden silence was somehow even worse. I turned my flashlight beam toward the door and saw a faint orange glow creeping under it. It was pulsing with that same strange light. 1 beat. 2. A pause. Emily's voice broke into a desperate sob. "Michael, what do we do?" I turned to look at her, but my gaze went past her, to the mirror on the wall behind the bed. My heart stopped. Reflected in the glass stood one of the children. Still, watching, holding a pumpkin. The light inside it pulsed once more. And in that instant, all the pumpkins in the neighborhood lit up again, one by one, until the whole street glowed like a living, breathing graveyard. We were trapped, and the night was far from over. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more chills. Stay safe out there. The air felt alive, humming like static. Every single pumpkin on the street burned with an unnatural orange light that flickered in perfect rhythm, like a single heartbeat echoing through the entire town. I gripped Emily's arm, my voice barely a whisper. "Stay behind me." We moved slowly, carefully toward the stairs. The orange glow spilling from our own living room made the walls look like they were bleeding light. Every shadow seemed to twist and breathe, alive with a malevolence I'd never felt before. Halfway down the staircase, we froze. The front door, it was wide open again. A frigid wind howled through it, carrying faint, high-pitched giggles, childlike, but utterly wrong. And there, In the center of the living room, surrounded by puddles of melted candle wax, stood the 4 small figures we had seen outside on the street. Emily's voice trembled beside me. They're just kids. But even in that flickering, demonic light, I knew something was horribly off. Their masks weren't paper anymore. They looked fused to their faces, bone-white, cracked, and glowing from within. The tallest one, the one holding a pumpkin carved into a screaming face, took a deliberate step forward. It tilted its head, a jerky, unnatural movement. "Trick or treat," it whispered. But the voice wasn't human. It was layered, like 100 different whispers all speaking at once, a chorus from a forgotten grave. I stumbled back, my shoulder hitting the wall hard. "What do you want from us?" The smallest figure, the one that had been standing perfectly still, suddenly dropped its pumpkin. It didn't thud. It shattered into a plume of black smoke, and from that smoke, something began to crawl out. A pure shadow with 2 pinprick eyes of burning orange. Emily screamed as the formless thing slithered across the floor, straight toward her feet. I didn't think. I just grabbed her hand and pulled her back up the stairs. The sound of tiny, frantic footsteps immediately followed us, running, pounding on the wooden steps, growing louder and closer with every second. We slammed the bedroom door shut, the wood vibrating from the impact. A second later, something hit it from the other side. Once, twice. Then, silence. An unnerving, absolute silence. Emily pressed her back flat against the wall, her whole body shaking. "This can't be real. Michael, this can't be happening." My eyes darted around the room, desperate for an escape, and landed on the window. "We need to get out of here. Now." But the view outside offered no comfort. The neighborhood looked completely wrong. Every single house on the block was glowing now, every window lit by the same pulsing, rhythmic orange light. And in every yard, figures stood motionless, men, women, children, all of them wearing jack-o'-lantern masks that flickered like hellish lanterns from another world. A low, deep hum filled the air, vibrating not just through the house but through our very bones. It wasn't coming from the street, it was coming from beneath us, from inside the house. My phone buzzed suddenly in my pocket, the vibration startling me. I pulled it out. A message from an unknown number. Just 3 words. "Come to us." The floor shook violently. Somewhere below, we heard the sharp snap of old wood, like something massive had just started moving in the basement. Emily cried out, her voice tight with terror. "We have to go!" We bolted for the hallway, but when I threw open the bedroom door, the entire corridor was filled with a thick, swirling fog. And at the far end of it, a figure stood, a figure taller than any human I'd ever seen. Its head was a rotting, oversized pumpkin, carved with a wicked smile that stretched far too wide, an impossible, leering grin. Its voice was deep, ancient, and seemed to echo from the very walls around us. "You lit the lights again." The lights in the house flickered violently. Emily clutched my arm, her knuckles white. "What lights?" The figure stepped closer. The candles we had lit throughout the house went out, one by one. "You forgot the rules," it growled, its voice like grinding stones. "When the lights die, the dead remember." The pumpkin-headed creature lifted a long, crooked hand. From its palm dripped a thick black wax that hissed like acid when it hit the floorboards, burning through the wood. I shoved Emily into the bathroom, slamming the door shut behind us. I fumbled with the lock, my hands shaking, then switched on my phone's flashlight. The walls trembled again. Something scraped against the other side of the door, softly at first, then harder, more insistently. A child's voice whispered through the crack under the door, then a third, whispering right by Emily's ear, though no one was beside her. "Now you'll stay forever." I screamed, a raw, primal sound, and threw open the small bathroom window. "Emily, jump, go." She hesitated for only a second, then climbed out onto the slippery roof. I followed right behind her, pulling myself out into the freezing night air. Below us, the entire street burned with that sickly pumpkin light. The hollow children stood in perfect rows in our front yard, their glowing faces all tilted upward, watching us. The air itself pulsed with whispers, thousands of voices chanting something old, something unholy, a language that wasn't meant for human ears. Don't look back. Pumpkins hidden in the undergrowth began lighting up one by one along the path, creating a trail leading us deeper into the darkness. Emily tripped over a root and fell, crying out in pain and fear. I pulled her up, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Then we both froze. In the trees directly ahead of us stood our house, the same hellish candlelight flickering in the windows. Only it wasn't possible. We had just run away from it. We turned around, frantic, and saw the same house behind us too. 4 identical houses, forming a perfect, impossible square. And from the porch of every single one, the hollow children stepped forward. Not 4, not 10, but hundreds of them, their jack-o'-lantern faces burning like the collective eyes of the dead. I could barely get the words out. Emily, this isn't our world anymore. The wind died completely. The lights all pulsed once more in perfect, terrifying unison, and the voice of the tall, pumpkin-headed figure echoed through the woods, coming from all directions at once. Welcome home. Thank you so much for watching. If this story sent a chill down your spine, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe out there, and until next time, try not to forget the rules. The house had fallen silent, a deep, unsettling quiet that followed the chaos of the night. On the porch, the Halloween decorations still swayed, though there was no wind. Inside, a single candle flickered, its faint light dancing across the living room, stroking the empty chairs and half-finished glasses of wine. I stood motionless by the window, watching my own trembling reflection in the dark glass. My wife, Anna, was gone. Not in any way I could explain. Not kidnapped, not left, just gone. One moment, she was right there, her laughter filling the room as she set down the dinner plates, still warm from the oven. The next, the lights flickered violently and her laughter was swallowed by the walls themselves, echoing into nothing. Every sound after that felt hollow, empty. I whispered her name into the silence. Anna? No answer, only a faint, persistent humming sound, seeming to come from inside the walls, as if the very house was breathing around me. I moved slowly toward the dining table, my eyes drawn to the candle that stubbornly refused to go out. The melted wax had cooled and hardened into a strange shape. I leaned closer. It was a handprint, faint but unmistakable, pressed into the wax. Outside, the jack-o'-lanterns on the porch still burned, their carved grins looking sharper now, more menacing. The flames inside their hollow eyes flickered with a strange, deep red hue. A chill ran down my spine as I realized the entire street was dark. Every other house was a black silhouette, as if the whole neighborhood had simply been erased, leaving only my home lit against the void. I grabbed my phone, my fingers fumbling with the smooth glass. No signal, not a single bar. My eyes darted to the digital clock on the kitchen counter. It flickered erratically, caught in a loop between 12 o'clock and 12:01, never quite settling on the present moment. The air in the house grew heavier, pressing in on me. The humming from the walls deepened, vibrating through the floorboards. It was no longer just a sound, it was a feeling, and mixed with it now were faint whispers, dozens of voices, layered and distant, like echoes of conversations that never happened, all talking at once but saying nothing I could understand. I had to try again. I called out, my voice louder this time, desperate. Anna! The only response was the faint creak of the floorboards upstairs, answering to footsteps that weren't mine. My head snapped up toward the staircase. The light at the top of the landing flickered once, twice, then stayed on, a stark, lonely beacon in the growing darkness. I felt a pull, an inexplicable urge to go up there. Slowly, almost hypnotically, I began to climb. With every step, the humming grew into a low, pulsing tone that vibrated deep in my chest, shaking me from the inside out. At the top of the stairs, the hallway looked wrong. It was longer than it should be, stretching into the shadows. The framed photos lining the wall had changed. Every picture that once showed Anna and me smiling on vacations, at holidays, at our wedding, now showed only me. Her face, her entire presence had been replaced by a faint blur of digital static, as if she'd been erased from my memories by light itself. I reached our bedroom door. It was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness visible within. As I pushed it open, the air that spilled out was cold and smelled faintly of burnt candle wax and recent rain. The curtains fluttered softly, though I knew the window was shut tight. And there, lying on the center of the bed, was her necklace, the small silver moon pendant I had given her last Halloween. It shimmered faintly in the dark, but it wasn't reflecting light. It was glowing from within, pulsing with a soft, ethereal luminescence, as if it held a tiny, captured heartbeat. I reached out, my fingers trembling, and the moment my skin touched the cold silver, the temperature in the room dropped instantly. A wave of icy air washed over me. The whispering returned, but it wasn't coming from the walls anymore. It was closer, right behind me. "We told her not to play," a voice hissed. "She didn't listen," another one rasped. I spun around, my heart hammering against my ribs. Nothing. There was nothing there. Just the flickering light bulb overhead and the tall, antique mirror by the door. I caught my reflection in the glass, my face pale, my eyes wide with terror. And for a split second, I saw her. Anna. She was standing just behind me, a soft, sad smile on her face. Her eyes were empty, hollow pits, but they were her eyes. Before I could even process what I was seeing, before I could turn, the lights died completely, plunging the room and the entire house into absolute blackness. The silence that followed was heavier than before, suffocating. Then, a single, sharp sound, the click of a light switch from downstairs. In that same instant, every Halloween light in the neighborhood flicked on at once. Orange, red, and purple glows filled the street outside my window, pulsing in a slow, rhythmic unison, as if a single, massive heart was beating for the entire block. I stumbled to the window and looked out. The street wasn't empty anymore. Dozens of figures stood still along the sidewalks, dark silhouettes of my neighbors, all motionless, all staring directly at my house. Their heads were tilted, their bodies unnaturally still. I backed away from the window, clutching the glowing pendant in my fist. It was warm now, throbbing against my palm. I glanced at the mirror again. My reflection was alone. The room behind me was empty. Outside, the carved pumpkins on my porch began to smile wider, their jagged grins stretching impossibly. The flames inside them flared, growing from a soft glow to a brilliant, searing white light, illuminating the entire street like a festival of ghosts. The silent figures of my neighbors were bathed in the intense, unnatural glare. Then, as suddenly as it all began, everything went out. The street plunged back into darkness. The figures were gone. The only thing that remained was that low, persistent hum from the walls. And then I heard it. A woman's voice, soft and clear, whispering from deep inside the house, seeming to come from everywhere at once. "You should have never blown out the last candle."